Okay. All right. Here we go. PTB Wrestling Network family. Happy May. Happy Mother's Day to the moms out there. Although by the time you hear this, it'll be about a week and a half after Mother's Day. But when it happened, happy Mother's Day to all the moms in the month of May. Welcome to Through the Looking Glass, your journey to places uncharted. And we are definitely going uncharted this week, this month, to a certain extent, and throughout the next several months. But before we get into our journey, let me bring in my co-pilot, who is always reliable and amazing. And he's wearing his Tom Rathman throwback. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, Dave Hall. How are you? I don't know where I got Tom Rathman from. I could have said anybody. I could have asked somebody like Tom Rathman.
Oh no! If I'm gonna throw back, I'm gonna throw back to the right time period, and we're gonna be wearing we're gonna be wearing Alex Smith or Colin Kaepernick. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't wear Colin Kaepernick.
Oh God. Oh God.
No, it's good. It's good to be back. May is the best month of the year. Absolutely the greatest month of the year, and it's good to be back with everyone. Those of you that celebrated Mother's Day with your mothers, I hope you had a good one. And if you are a mother listening, we hope you were spoiled by your families. So
yes,
Mother's Day is always good, but May's even more important when taking Mother's Day out of the equation. So that's just how it goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My mom's blessed. She has 4 kids. Well, my oldest brother passed away, but she has 3 remaining siblings, and she had us each for a day. My sister and my brother-in-law took her out Friday night, Mother's Day weekend. My other brother took her out Saturday, and I took her out on actual Mother's Day, which was very cool. So, so it was nice, and I hope your wife was spoiled as well, Dave, and everybody else. So happy moms for you moms listening. So I'm gonna before we begin, I want to, and I've said this I think in the past. We're on our 54th episode, I think, 53rd or 54th episode of Through the Looking Glass, and admittedly, I'm gonna break the fourth wall here because this guy deserves all the credit in the world. I think this is episode 54, but of the previous 53 episodes, Dave has come up with probably 49 of the topics. Because Dave is that damn good. I come up with a couple when my mind is actually not scrambled. And then we had the couple episodes where fate gave us the topic when, of course, someone passed away. We did Sid, we did Sabu, we obviously did Hogan. But I got to do that. I chose this topic because I thought this was really crazy. So last month when we did our WrestleMania episode, I was looking through just stuff, and I had tabs open on my computer. And I was looking at the matches of a show we were looking at, and I saw the belts, and I'm like, you know what? Of all the cards we've changed over these years, Dave, and all the guys who we took belts from and added belts to, I said, what's the problem with going into an alternate universe and changing an entire lineage? Why not? It's not a holy grail. So starting tonight, and maybe for most of the rest of the year, because we could probably cover almost every month if we wanted to. Obviously, August we'll obviously do our SummerSlam episode in August. But some of these other months, I think we're going to have some fun going back in time and looking at the past lineages or current or lineages of the most well-known wrestling championships. Whether it's the WWE title, maybe the World Heavyweight title, maybe the NWA title, the WCW title, Intercontinental, United States, all different, tags. Well, if we do tags, then obviously, Dave's going to have 47-time tag team champions Demolition.
No. Let's get this right. Not 47-time. Undisputed, undefeated tag team champions for 40 years. Demolition.
They're going to carry the belts on all the cons. That would be fantastic. By the way, Dave, I don't know if I actually said this from last month, but I do want to say congratulations to your favorite tag team of all time. They are officially in history now. They are WWE Hall of Famers, and that's awesome. Congrats to the whole class. My favorite team of all time, the Road Warriors. They're already in. They went in two. When did they go in? They went in when Sean went in. Because I think it was Atlanta, right? I think they went in 2011. If I remember correctly, the Road Warriors. I think they went in the same year Sean did, which was 2011, because that's when they were in Atlanta.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna because the following year, 2012, was when the Horsemen went in Miami. I do remember that. Anyway, so starting tonight and for the next several months, we're gonna delve into some championship lineages and tweak it. Should this guy have been replaced by another guy? Should this title reign have been this long? Should this person have lost it in between to somebody else? Something like that. And it may not be this. It may not be a lot. We may have lineages that are practically there aren't. There's no perfect wrestling belt lineage. There's holes all over the place. Sorry, Sean Kidd, Ronnie Garvin. But
that's it. To give an example outside of what we're going to be doing today, that might be an example. It might be that we look at a championship reign and we go, you know what? I don't think Ron Garvin should have been the guy to defeat Ric Flair for the title. I don't think that title reign should have ended at that point. I think Flair should have had a continued run. Or it might be, we don't think Ronnie Garvin should have dropped the belt straight back to Ric Flair, and maybe Ron should have held it for 12 months and lost it to Barry Windham. Like that's the sort of idea we're talking about here.
Yep, that's exactly it. Or Ric Flair held the belt for 2 years. Should he maybe have lost it? Should Ricky Steamboat have at least won it once in that 85 to 87 range, or 84 to 87? Would Kerry Von Erich had lost it? Would Kerry Von Erich had won it if David Von Erich didn't die? The answer is no. David Von Erich would have won it. But stuff like that. So but tonight we're gonna start with the big one. And obviously tonight will be part one, because I think we'll break this up into two. Tonight, of course, we'll start with the granddaddy of them all, the WWE Championship, the granddaddy of them all. And we're going to go back to 1963 and go all the way to current day. Now, we're not going to do that tonight because it is a long list. So we're going to break this one up into two parts. So this tonight we will go from the beginning to the brand split. That was a good idea that Dave came up with. So we'll go up until when Brock Lesnar beat The Rock at SummerSlam 2002. We'll stop there tonight. And then next month, we'll go from there on. I think that's a good point, because by then, as you said, Dave, we get this brand split. So the world title, the WWE, not the world title, the WWE title goes to SmackDown, and we get some specifics. And so kind of what we've done in the past with cards, except just the belt we'll talk about. We're not going to get a deep dive too much into like feuds and how to build it. We're just going to come up with guys, maybe one or two scenarios, things like that.
There might be a couple of times where we're recognizing that perhaps the belt might have changed hands within a feud, and we might just briefly outline what that might have looked like, or there might be something specific about a title change that we would want to highlight. So that's sort of, it's more of a highlights package rather than a deep storyline driven episode.
Right. Exactly. So, okay. All right. So let's begin at the beginning. April 1st, 1963 in Washington, D.C., your inaugural WWF champion is Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. To give you the backstory, Rogers had been NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and we will do that belt down the road, since 1961. After Rogers lost the title to Lou Thesz on January 24th, 1963, which is 30 years before the Royal Rumble. I don't know why that date popped in my head. Northeast promoters did not recognize this title change and withdrew from the NWA to form the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. So for the first several names, we're going to be adding the W. The WWF continued to recognize Rogers as world champion and awarded him the championship belt on April 1st, 1963. WWE recognizes that reign is starting on April 25th. We're not going to split hairs about stuff like that. So pretty much what I've read is that Lou Thesz won the NWA title in January of '63, and pretty much Sam Mushnick, who was Lou Thesz's guy in St. Louis, told Vince Sr. and what's his name? The Goldust Trio guy. I can't think of his name. Yeah, Lou Thesz may come to your neck of the woods maybe twice a year. And Vince Sr.'s like, the hell he is. He's coming like every couple of months. And Sam's like, nah, that's not the way I do things, brother. So Vince Sr. told Mushnick in the NWA, you can stick it where the sun don't shine. Snapped off. And honestly, Vern Gagne did the same thing. Vern Gagne did the same thing. That might be a belt we could do. The AWA title. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
So he broke off, and we had the creation of our beloved Worldwide Wrestling Federation. So Buddy Rogers, who was Vince Sr.'s guy, was the inaugural champion. We'll obviously leave that one as is.
And
is there anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, well, look, I think there's the other part of the story that I've heard within that is that it was also that Vince was wanting to perhaps push someone else to the agenda as potential NWA World Champion, and the rest of the NWA board didn't want to have a bar of it. They weren't interested in this particular person, who we will talk about very shortly. This particular person being given a run as the NWA champion. And I think that was also part of Vince Sr.'s mindset in the break. It's that we've got this guy that we can, put our promotion behind and push and reap the rewards from, that is not going to be looked at as a potential world champion by the NWA. So I think that was another element to it as well. The ability to not just, like you said, have the occasional visit, but have someone who they felt was over enough to get a run and get a look in, and the wider territories, the other territories, didn't see the same thing.
Yes, I did hear that side of it too, and you were absolutely correct. And we're going to talk about that guy right now, because Buddy Rogers only held the belt for a month and a half. Because on
just before we go to this, we've talked about how the reality of the title change, but I love that the kayfabe storyline of the creation of the WWF Championship was always that Buddy Rogers won a tournament in Rio de Janeiro.
Yes.
Defeating Antonino Rocca. So I always love that these tournaments were held in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Like it's not they never hold any cards there in the 1960s, let alone a whole tournament. So, but it was pre-internet days, pre-mass media. It was easy to sort of go, oh, we ran a tournament down there. You just you didn't see it, but we did do it.
That's because back then you couldn't. They picked. I think what made me laugh is they would take. The reason they picked Rio is because you couldn't research it. It's not like Brazilians are getting the wrestler. Well, there was no PWI in 1963, but you couldn't get. And down the road, Dave, we're going to talk about one of the most famous or infamous tournaments in the history of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, because this wasn't the only one. So after Buddy Rogers hung out with Pele and the Brazilian national soccer team, they probably won the World Cup down there at some point too. On May 17th, 1963, at Madison Square Garden, not the first time we'll be in this building, Buddy Rogers dropped the belt. He had to retire. He was having health issues. He had health issues, heart issues. So he dropped the belt to this guy, the guy that Dave was talking about when the NWA said, we don't want this guy as our champion. And that is from Abruzzi, Italy, by way of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My dad's guy, my grandfather's guy, Bruno Sammartino. Bruno was Northeast through and through. Sam Mushnick probably said, we don't want any of these Italians as our champion, okay?
Yeah.
None of these Italians. Yeah, Dave is right. That is one of the other things that Sam Mushnick and the NWA Brain Trust were not fans of Bruno as a guy that would travel. He was Northeast through and through. A lot of it, and this is funny, Dave. A lot of it was probably trust because it's like, oh, so Vince Sr. doesn't trust our guy as champion, but we have to trust his guy as champion. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody had a guy. You had Eddie Graham, who probably had a Florida guy, like Dory Funk, and then you had Dory Funk Sr., who had both his kids. And then you got, Joe Blanchard, you got Paul Bosch, and, Fritz, and Vern, and all these guys. They all had their, in Vern's case, it was himself. But all these guys had their guys. And obviously, Bruno was Vince Sr.'s guy. So on May 17th, 1963, he defeated Buddy Rogers at the Garden to be the WWF champion. Obviously, we're not going to change that, obviously.
No, absolutely not.
Bruno would hold the belt for almost 7.5 years. Now, we don't know a lot about the roster, Dave, in the 60s in WWF. So, realistically, would you have a title change somewhere in this window? You know what I mean? Like, would you have Bruno drop the belt to some heel, chase it for a couple months, and then have a big mega show and have him win it back? Was there any guys that could have been a great heel guy to beat Bruno and then Bruno chase it and make some big time money at the Garden for a big card? Like, is there anybody you could think of? Or is Bruno as the 8-year champion it perfectly fine?
I think from what I understand, I mean, again, I will admit, I'm old. I'm not that old. I wasn't alive back then. I'm not, I'm on the other side of the world, but from everything I've heard from journalists who were around, guys like Bill Apter and some of the territory guys that you read interviews and stuff about, I think the reality is Bruno was over like Rover. He was massively over. I don't think that it wouldn't have been worth taking the belt off him for that short period of time. I think it enhanced his credibility and it enhanced his reputation to hold the title, especially when you had these traveling champions in the NWA who would go around and would occasionally drop the belt to a guy in an area to pop a house on a rematch or on a, because it's the local guy getting the win. It pops a house for that changeover, and then you've got to drop it back. I think Bruno, like you said, Bruno was the Northeast guy, and he was regularly selling out Madison Square Garden. They didn't need to take the belt off him because he kept selling out, and I think if they were struggling to draw a house, that might have been something you would reconsider. Take the title off him, get some interest in the return match, and you'll pop a bigger attendance on the return show. But from everything I've heard, even from Madison Square Garden, like Bruno just had sellout after sellout, and you don't need to take. They never needed to take the title off him.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't even know maybe, I don't know, Killer Kowalski, George Animal Steel. He did have, of course, the Garden would change. MSG3, which is the building that he won the title originally, would be replaced in 1968 by the Garden that's there now. And of course, we would have many a title change in that building that we will discuss this evening. Bruno would hold the belt, as I said, for 7.5 years. But then he told Vince Sr. that I need a break. I mean, I've gone nonstop all over the Northeast because back then he went from Maine to Western PA, Eastern Ohio, down through DC, Philly, into Baltimore. That was the turf. And he told Vince Sr., I'm cooked. I want out. I'm done. So Vince Sr. needed a new guy to carry the torch. Well, first thing he had to do was get the belt off Bruno. So on January 18th, 1971, at Madison Square Garden, arguably one of the biggest upsets in history, happened when Ivan Koloff, yes, Nikita's uncle, defeated Bruno Sammartino to win the WWF title. He would hold the belt for 21 days. On February 8th, 1971, Ivan Koloff would drop the belt to the next big ethnic champion here in the Northeast, and that was Pedro Morales. So we went from galvanizing the Italian fan base in this territory to galvanizing the Latino Hispanic fan base in the territory. Again, Dave, I mean, Ivan Koloff's fine. I'm not going to come up with anybody else. But Pedro was probably a good choice. Again, he's pretty much the Puerto Rican, because he's from Puerto Rico, the Puerto Rican equivalent of Bruno. He was very galvanizing to the ethnic community here in the Northeast. And I think he was a good guy for Vince Sr. at that time. What do you think?
Yeah. Look, I don't dispute that as well. Again, from everything I've heard, yeah, you have quite a wide cultural base, or they did have at that time a wide cultural base in the New York area, and so
they did.
Pedro Morales certainly draws in a different fan. I think the desire is to draw in a different fan, spread the fan base from into another group, hopefully capture the attention of some other fans and draw some new fans in. So I think that's a reasonable thing. Pedro at the time, from everything I read, very, very good in-ring worker, excellent worker. His talent always rises to the top. My question would be whether the title change had to happen so quickly. I think there is the potential there that you could have held that title change off a little bit. We're talking the height of the Cold War. We are talking the absolute epitome of the USSR relationship being at a struggle and a problem, and you really could have run with Ivan Koloff. I think Ivan Koloff was probably the perfect person for the title switch, and I think we've talked before on this program and on other programs about how and we'll probably get to it again on this one, how the Iron Sheik at the time in '84, what was going on in the world, was the perfect person to be that transition. I think Ivan was the perfect person to be the transition, but can you imagine the heat that would have been on Ivan if he had kept the title for 2 or 3 months, like perhaps had a rematch with Bruno where he wins again by cheating, count out, DQ, like he does something that he holds the title even though Bruno would have won. The fans would have been incensed at that. Then you have a couple of months where he defeats, you're in the time period of like the Dominic DeNucci's. Like you could have had a title defense against some of these long-term baby faces who, because it was Bruno and Pedro were these long-running champs, never really got a look in at the title or even a title match. Like you could have had a couple of like a Dominic DeNucci get a title shot, and whoever else in that time period, you could have had a couple of babyface challengers who all step up and whatever it is, don't win, and Ivan can continue to push the Russian ideal here, and I think the heat on him would have been absolutely nuclear. And then you could have, Pedro is the guy to take the title and, build it up for a couple of months. Pedro's coming, and maybe even Ivan tries to avoid the match at first and doesn't want to face him, but, backed into a corner, has no choice. And then Pedro gets the win on his first attempt. I think that would work. I think it would have just been massive.
Yeah, I could see that. I didn't know. Yeah, there probably was no reason why it had to be only 21 days. I mean, maybe even 6 months. Maybe
Yeah,
even 6 months, and Pedro wins the belt in June. I
yes.
mean, I agree with you. I don't think there was any real I could see that. I don't think there was any real need to have to do it so fast. Maybe that's something else we think about later on with the guy you just mentioned. So what we're saying is we're not changing the lineage of guys, but perhaps um, Ivan Koloff could have held the belt for maybe 6 months or so until June of 71, and then he loses to Pedro. So Pedro's the champion. He holds the belt for over 1,000 days, not 2,803 days like Bruno. And this is where I would change this. So here's my first change. On December 1st, actually, before I say that, Dave, later that year in 71, I guess Sam Mushnick and Vince Sr. made amends, and the WWF goes back into the NWA, and they take the word world out of the belt, and now it's just the WWF Heavyweight Championship. There is no world. They take the world out because they recognize the NWA World Heavyweight Champion again. So there you go. So again, Pedro holds the belt for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And then on December 1st, 1973, in Philadelphia, I'm assuming it's the Spectrum. Maybe it's the Civic Center. I don't know. Pedro Morales drops the belt to Stan the Man Stasiak. Yes, the father of meat. The father of meat is the WWF champion in an epic upset. So there had to have been. We'll get to who he loses to in a minute, but there had to have been a better guy. I mean, was he really the best heel? I would have gone. I'll tell you right out of the gate, I would have gone for somebody that was much more of a local heel. That was a local heel that has been in the company for a while. I would have given the belt to Killer Kowalski. I feel like, he's a New Hampshire guy, trained. I think he should have gotten a shot instead of this dope to be the WWF champion. That's just my take. I'm trying to look ahead at some of his career because I don't remember much of it. Came back. He was in the WWF in 71 and 72. Then he left, went to Texas. This guy bounced around. Then he went to All Japan. And then he went back to the WWF in 73. And then he beat Pedro. Here's a bit of backstory before we move on. The match ended when Stasiak applied a full Nelson to Morales, and both wrestlers fell backwards in a position. It was one of those things where they both fell back, like the back suplex thing. And Stasiak lifted his shoulder on the 2 count. Following the match, ring announcer Buddy Wagner did not announce Stasiak as the new champion, instead asking the audience to applaud Morales. So they didn't say "and new WWF champion." Dave Meltzer suggested that this was intended to prevent the audience from rioting, kind of when Bruno lost to Ivan Koloff. Stasiak was given little notice that he'd be winning the title. According to him, he was sitting in the dressing room in Philadelphia when a road agent came to discuss the match. Stasiak considered this a formality as he had been having the same discussion. nearly verbatim in every major city on the seaboard for the past 2 months. However, this time it was different as the agent told Stasiak that he was winning the belt. According to fellow wrestler Frank Dusek, so here's what Dave, I know you're gonna analyze this next point because I know you. The agent told, according to fellow wrestler Frank Dusek, the company did not. They wanted Bruno to be champion again. They asked Bruno, we could use a boost in the numbers. Can you come back and with another run with the belt? Bruno had been off for 2 years, and he was like, yeah, I think I got one more run in me. But they didn't want Bruno to beat Pedro. So they just needed a heel in the middle to win it. They used it as a transitional champion, and then 9 days later, on December 10th, 1973, he dropped the belt to Bruno Sammartino, who would be the first multi-time WWF champion. And he would hold the belt for 1,237 days. We'll get to that in a minute. But so you've asked me, you and I have talked about this in the past, and I know you've questioned this. You have said to me, why did we even need Stan Stasiak in the first place?
Exactly.
Why couldn't we have face versus face? Now, I know that the WrestleMania VI concept was very foreign in 1973, but I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to give me your thinking on how that could have worked without causing the Italians and the Latinos to fight each other, like the Jets and the Sharks in West Side Story, having the snaps. Yeah. Do you really think it would have worked?
Look, I do. I do think it would have worked. I think there's a mentality that we're starting to see, a very old school promoter mentality about it's just got to go from face to heel to face. We don't want our two faces beating each other. That's a mentality that lasted into the modern era. It was only in the Attitude Era where that mentality really look. It was probably Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels when the first time they really went, or Hogan, Warrior, where they started to go against it. But it was always that outlier, that mentality. Yet the other companies, the NWA would regularly have guys that was that shade of gray. Just this is the top guy and we're dropping it to the next top guy. I think there was the potential for it to be a massive match. Now, I say that because there was precedent. Bruno had actually challenged Pedro to a match previously. They'd had a championship match that went to a time limit curfew draw. If I remember the storyline correct, they wrestled till the match had to be stopped so they could shut the building. And it was about 75 minutes long. It was a draw. They shook hands. It's all good. And I think that the storyline could very well have been built of that sportsmanship rivalry. Both guys as the sportsman, building it over. You could build it over a couple of months. They perhaps teaming together. They're acknowledging, who is there, and acknowledging each one's ability. And commentators could even sort of talk about the fact that can Pedro ever get out of Bruno's shadow, but in the right way, not to turn Pedro heel, but that idea. They've had this 75-minute draw. Look, let's have another match with no curfew, no time limit, no curfew. Let's just go. May the best man win. And I think if you promoted it properly, I think it would have been a massive outcome, a massive money maker for the company. Probably something they could have done in a stadium. Probably something they could have perhaps done at like Shea Stadium or Yankee Stadium. I don't know. I don't know if they used Yankee Stadium, but you know what I mean. Like putting it in that big outdoor concept in an afternoon where you're not going to have a curfew, and let these two guys. I think they would have drawn a massive crowd, and I don't think they would have if they promoted it right and you do the outcome right. It doesn't need to be they're not looking at the potential of a riot or a problem. You can do the old back suplex finish where one guy just gets the shoulder up over the other, or that old trope. And so really the result could have gone either way. And they get up and they shake hands and they embrace afterwards. And Pedro holds Bruno's arm up. I mean, the fact of the matter is, regardless of what people thought of Pedro, Bruno was the man in that company.
Yep.
Everyone knew it.
Yep.
Every fan knew it.
Yep.
Pedro might have been champion, but Bruno was the man. The same way we've had these conversations about when guys like CM Punk held the title, but John Cena was the man.
Right.
It was that idea. So if Pedro had beaten Bruno, might have been a different story, might have been a bigger problem. But the fact that you would want the title going back to Bruno, I think the fans would have accepted it. They would have recognized it. They would have expected it. And I think, a good, evenly clean fought match where they keep that no rule breaking. They keep it straight down the line. And they shake and they hug afterwards, and
Yep.
Pedro acknowledges him. I think it would have worked.
You make a good point, and that's Bruno ends up winning the match. If you do it in reverse, or if you have Pedro retain, and this is no disrespect to Pedro, honestly, but you're right, Bruno was the man. And I think some of the audience would have been fine. I don't think there would have been boos, but I think the pop might have been a little less than had Bruno been the one who won. So that's right. I agree with you. But it would have taken a lot of good promoting.
Yep.
And maybe like you do a contract signing, the house show the month before, really build it up on TV, really build it up. I don't know how that kind of stuff worked in 1973, but who knows? So Bruno wins it on December 10th from Stan Stasiak, but maybe in our world, he wins it straight from Pedro.
Yeah.
He holds it for about 3.5 years. Until April 30th, 1977, at the arena in Baltimore, Maryland, where he drops the belt for the last time to superstar Billy Graham. I have zero problem with this title change. I think superstar Billy Graham was a perfect heel for this company. At the time, he was big, he was jacked, he was effervescent with his colorful tights, and just everything was just amazing. He had a great manager. He had the Grand Wizard, and it was, I think, a perfect change of pace from kind of like we're getting into the late 70s disco, and things are crazy different, and I think he's a perfect guy, superstar Billy Graham as champion.
Absolutely. And he had the charisma and the ability to talk people into the building. And as a heel champion, that it was, I mean, look, as a champion in their company at the time, that was different. I mean, Bruno had a heavy accent. And look, I grew up with him on commentary, but he was never that charismatic on the microphone. And neither was Pedro Morales. But now you've got a guy who brings a different element to the company, to the championship picture. He can talk as well, and he can talk people in. And what have we seen over the years of our lifetime, Scott, has been these heel champions that talk people in the arena. You want to see them get their butt kicked because they annoy you, not just because they're good in ring, but because they annoy you on the mic as well. It's like, can someone shut this guy up? And
right.
And I think that was the other element that Superstar brought that hadn't been seen in the WWF at that point. And realistically, if you look around, like, I know Bockwinkel was a very good orator.
Yes.
He was a very good talker.
Good word.
But most of the NWA guys, they were okay, but they weren't there to talk. They were there to travel around, and wrestle the different regional people when they got into the territory. So they needed to be excellent in-ring workers who could go an hour and a half, and have these great matches and make the people they're working with look $1,000,000. They didn't need to talk people in because the traveling champion was the draw. Our guy is facing the champion, but in a regional territory, you're seeing this guy all the time. That ability to talk changes the game and makes it appealing, makes it different, and something that I think that's why Superstar's reign. I think he was the perfect guy to take over. He was big and strong, so it seemed legitimate that he could beat Bruno, and he then has that charisma and talking ability that, as you move away from Bruno and other guys, the fans are going to want to come along and see because he'll talk them in.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Perfect guy and a good guy for a change of pace again in the changing of the WWF. So he holds the belt for 296 days, and then on February 20th, 1978, on MSG Network back in the day at Madison Square Garden, he loses the belt, drops the title to Bob Backlund. Now, I've said many times on this show and on other shows here on the network over the years, I am not the biggest Bob Backlund fan. I thought he was about as exciting as a glass of water. He was a fine worker, and I guess for that time, he was a very popular babyface. There were episodes of kids running in the ring and everything, but he might have been the first kids champion. But I just never found him. I liked crazy mid-90s Bob Backlund. I loved him. But Bob Backlund never did anything for me. Having said that, for the time in the late 70s, he was probably the perfect guy to be champion. And
so
Vince,
I've done some research. I did some research on Bob. I was trying to get my head around part of the concept, and it's that mentality of the workhorse, the guy who can go those long matches, who can wrestle anybody. That was still the mentality that was around, and ironically, something I found out that I didn't know is there is an opinion that Bob Backlund was being groomed as a potential NWA champion. He'd held the Missouri title for a while, that was Harley Race's territory. That was where Harley had cut his teeth, and that it was viewed that Backlund was on a track to be a potential NWA champion. Now, I didn't know that. I only learned that when I was doing some research for this episode. And so by bringing Bob back to the WWF, I think part of it was Vince Senior sort of feeling, I've brought you back, I better put the title on you because, I've sort of taken that other option away from you. And I think that's part of the mentality. I can understand where they're coming from. I question whether, again, it was too soon. I would have loved to have seen Superstar have a couple more years, have a bit longer as champion. You're in that time period of the long reigning champs. I think Superstar could have gone a bit longer, and potentially, I would have loved the idea of maybe even like his feud with Dusty was just so good and so well received. Imagine if you'd actually done Dusty's first world title was actually a short run, taking the belt off Superstar before Superstar won it back from him. And then Superstar could have a couple, like you have Superstar sort of being the man for that maybe 77 to 70 to, maybe even 1980, like that sort of 3-year time span. But in there, in like sort of maybe late 78, give Harley a brief 1 or 2 month run, do a switch there. And then, Harley goes back to Florida, and then he gets a short run with the NWA title, and that can become Dusty's, not Harley, Dusty's little stick. He has these little short runs. So I would have loved to have seen Dusty get a brief run with the title, even just a month. And in the rematch, Superstar wins it back by absolute, cheating to the moon, and, manager interference, hit him with a belt, hit him with a chair, hit him with brass knucks, do something that, is just absolutely downright heelish. But I would have loved to have seen Dusty get a victory for the title. And then you could draw out that reign a bit longer, and Bobby Boy could have won it later. He didn't need the 77 to 83 or 78 to 83 run. He could have had just sort of 1980 on.
It's funny you say that, because I that was my next thing we were going to talk about is because there's a couple of title changes floating around here that in the analogy that are not didn't happen. I agree. I think that, they were red hot in the late 70s. I don't know if at the time, and we can't, hindsight's 2020. I don't know if Vince Sr. thought that Dusty could not be trusted.
I think it was because Dusty was seen as we're not going to get any long-term commitment from him. He's Florida. He's an NWA boy. He's like, I think it was that he's not going to stay in our area very long.
Right. Yeah, that, he's here to pump the crowd, and he was being borrowed. So he's probably a guy that was not going to be long-term as champion. He was here to put over Superstar Billy Graham as a top flight heel. Vince Sr.'s guy was Bob Backlund. But in our universe, we can do whatever we want. And I would have switched out Bob Backlund here for Dusty Rhodes. And I would have Dusty hold the belt for a few months, and then maybe Superstar Billy Graham win it back.
Yes.
And then Bob beats him maybe the end of 78 or maybe the beginning of 79. I agree with you on that. I would love to have seen Dusty as champ.
I consider it even longer. I think you could have held Superstar with the belt until probably even 1980. And then put Bob. You could you could have had multiple times. You could have had Bob Backlund nearly win the title. You could that could have been the story. Imagine this is the storyline for Bob. He gets a shot in 78, and so Superstar wins it back from Dusty, and maybe his first challenger after that's Bob Backlund, and Backlund has the match won, and the Grand Wizard distracts the ref, pulls the ref out of the ring, does something, and so Superstar gets disqualified. And then Superstar starts ducking Bob Backlund, doesn't want a rematch. Then he gets forced into another rematch. Finally gets the rematch. Like, he ducks it, and finally Bob Backlund, he's able to get his rematch, and Superstar does it again. He gets counted out, or he does something to avoid losing the belt. And you could do that because of the time period over a couple of years. Bob gets a shot, and Superstar just does something heelish, nefarious to not drop the belt. He maybe he gets a win where he's grabbing the tights and feet on the ropes, and that sort of thing. And finally, it becomes like Bob gets his last shot. Superstar says, "This is the last time you are ever going to get a shot at this title. I've beaten you time and again. You keep coming back for more. I've beaten you time and again over the last 3 years. I thought you would have left the company. I thought you would have left this company. I thought I would have gotten you into retirement now, but this time I'm going to beat you into retirement. I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna force you. I'm gonna injure you. You're never gonna be able to compete again. And that's when Backlund wins the belt.
Okay, good. I like that. Now in the prime time, and I like that. I think you give superstar Billy Graham, because he was such a good, and then eventually, and superstar Billy Graham said this on his doc, that he eventually, I think, would have been a great babyface. And but I think Vince Sr. wasn't thinking about that yet. I think Vince Jr., Little Vince, or as we say, Vince, would have probably done that. Because that's right in his wheelhouse. Now, in the Prime universe, I guess Backlund dropped the belt to Antonio Inoki at the end of in November of '79. Then it's vacated, and then Bob Backlund wins it back in December of '79. In a Texas death match. There's like a bunch of controversies between.
Yeah, that's all political. That was the whole, Inoki can't look weak in Japan, and was it really a title change, and was it not? And in Japan, it was acknowledged as one, but in the US, it was never acknowledged, and so they wanted to fix the lineage up a little bit, and they find another match, and that's just a hodgepodge of Antonio Inoki's political games. That's how I've always seen that.
Right.
And I wouldn't do it. I think in our timeline, if Inoki wants a shot at the title, he's losing. And that's that simple. If I was Vince Senior, I'd say, well, if we're going to have a title shot, you either lose or it's a draw. You're not winning. You're not winning. You're not winning the belt. And if you don't like it, we won't send Bob Backlund over.
Yep. No, we play hardball here in between through the looking glass. Damn it. We're not letting Inoki or Mil Mascaris push us around.
If Inoki wants the big win, we'll send superstar Billy Graham, who just lost the title. It was supposed to be a title match, but unfortunately, he lost the belt to Bob Backlund, and then Antonio Inoki can beat Superstar. Oh, look at that. He would have won the championship if Superstar hadn't dropped the belt.
Yeah. Yep. During this reign, Bob Backlund beat Tommy. Well, the belt was vacated. He lost the belt then he beat Bobby Duncombe in a Texas death match. Then on October 19th, 1981, there was a controversial match with Greg Valentine at Madison Square Garden. And then Backlund defeated him in a rematch in November. WWE just considers this one long reign.
Yeah.
I would have. This is what I would have done. And again, I wish this was the trust. Again, in our world, we treat these guys differently. Now, one of my first favorite wrestler of all, and I've said this on the show many, many times. My first favorite wrestler of all time was Jimmy Snuka. I love Superfly before I was a big fan of Hogan. And I think it was, if I remember the date correctly, it was June 28th, 1982. Backlund took on Snuka, who was managed, I think, by Captain Lou, in a title match in a cage, and Backlund won. I would have had Jimmy Snuka win that match and become the WWF champion. He was a guy that I think would have been a great heel champion. The fans hated him, but he was good looking. Snuka was jacked. He had the heel goatee. I think that would have been a fantastic match. Maybe Captain Lou ties Backlund's foot to the cage or something. He shoves Arnie Skull into the ground, and then he holds it for a few months, and then maybe in the summertime or in the fall, you have a big extravaganza at the Garden. Maybe you have Snuka face Backlund for the title, and then maybe Captain Lou and Arnie Skolin throws the tights on that old bastard, and they have a grizzled match, and Backlund wins the belt back. and then holds it until the next title change on the thing. What are your thoughts on me giving Snuka a title reign in '82?
I like the idea of Snuka getting a title reign. I think as the heel, he was different. The crowd were into him. I think that would have been an interesting scenario. In regards to dropping it back to Backlund, though, that yeah, look, what if I mean it's our timeline. What if this is where what we just suggested a moment ago could have happened, and that's where superstar Billy Graham has turned babyface, and he comes back in and regains this title as a babyface instead, and you give superstar a babyface run for a year or so, late '82 into '83.
And then how about this? We're gonna throw the AWA a bone in our universe. Backlund leaves the WWF. By the way, I forgot to mention in '79 we ditched the W, so we're not wide anymore. Now we can actually say WWF.
Yeah.
Backlund leaves the WWF, goes to AWA, and he could be a guy that Vern goes in and because I mean Backlund is a Vern guy through and through. Yeah. He's a total Vern guy.
Yes.
And he could feud with Bockwinkel. And then somebody else doesn't get as pissed off. But
and maybe that's another reason why a certain individual leaves the company. He's sort of like, okay, you've transitioned. I'm no longer in that challenger spot. I need to move elsewhere. It doesn't become as controversial for him to be looking to leave the company.
Exactly. So maybe we do that. So maybe in our world, Backlund loses to Snuka in June of '82. They lose that. He leaves, goes to the AWA. We don't worry about Backlund. And then in the fall, or maybe beginning of '83, a babyface superstar Billy Graham, who looks like the old school Billy Graham, like that weird, ninja kung fu thing or whatever the hell he was.
No, he's still superstar from the late '70s.
Yep. And and he beats Snuka in, say, like November, December of '82, and holds it for a year.
Yes.
And then what happens here, the next guy on the list, this has to happen. December 26th, 1983, in the Prime Universe, Backlund loses to him. But we can have superstar Billy Graham lose the title to the Iron Sheik. Now, of course, we all know how that ended. Arnie Skolin threw in the towel. At this point, World was put back on the list, and the NWA affiliation ended again. So now it's back to being called the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. I think the Iron Sheik needs to be the champion because we're not messing anything else up. So,
no, absolutely. But I think you also create a scenario like we've talked before, and we've talked in other things like the heat on Sheik, the Iranian crises and all that in the late '70s, early '80s created an environment where Sheik was red hot as a heel at this point, and it made perfect sense for him to take that belt. And you had Hogan building, and Hogan, imagine Superstar. And look, I think Superstar was probably, you've also got the thing that Superstar's body was starting to break down. I mean, the reason he changed and did that whole ninja thing and all that, part of it was tied to the fact that his injuries and issues with his body he was starting to slow down. So, Vince Jr. takes over. He has a talk with Superstar. Look, we've got to shift. We want to bring in a younger guy. Your body's struggling. you're welcome to hang around for as long as you want, but we're gonna take the belt off you, put on someone else, but we'd like you to help put this guy over. I mean, you can still do the whole mystery partner television thing where Hogan comes out as Superstar's partner and is put over by as that helps sort of elevate Hogan and the acceptance that comes with that. You can still do that whole thing. I just think it'd be fun to see Superstar Billy Graham and Hulk Hogan sort of sharing the ring as teammates even on a one match basis would be fun.
I agree. No, I like that idea. I agree. Then of course, we get to the big one. This one is obviously not changing, and that is January 23rd, 1984 at Madison Square Garden. The Iron Sheik drops the belt to the man, Mr. Hulk Hogan. That's not changing.
No.
But
so I think where we've come to, I think it's interesting to see that overall these early years, these first 20 odd years of the company, we really haven't changed a lot.
No.
A couple of, we've dropped the title change there. We've suggested Superstar could have held it a bit longer. Jimmy Snooker's probably the biggest beneficiary of our journey to this point, but realistically, most of the history is pretty much intact.
Yes, yeah, we haven't gone too in the weeds. We just kind of chopped up Bob Backlund. It tells you how much Dave and I think of him. But hey, we sent him off to Minneapolis, and he could be Vince Senior. He could be Vern Savior or whatever. All right. So we all know what happens here. Hogan holds the belt for 1,474 days from January 23rd, 1984 to February 5th, 1988. I've always thought about this. Was there anybody in this run that could have benefited from a title reign in this 4 years, if you do not want to give it to Hogan for the full 1,474 days in a row? But this also begs the question. You and I have discussed in the past, if I remember correctly, about a cool scenario where Roddy Piper wins the world title, say at the Wrestling Classic. And then at WrestleMania 2, it's Hogan versus Piper in the cage for the title. I feel like you and I have talked about that.
Yes, we definitely did that one.
Yep. We've also talked about him not losing the belt in that stretch, but then instead facing Nikita Koloff at WrestleMania 2, because that was definitely rumored, but Nikita was not leaving Crockett. Two questions. Number one, is there a guy in this window that could have benefited from a cheap heel title win? And number two, would having Hogan lose the belt before March 29th, 1987 cheapen that title match with Andre? Two-part question. Start with, all right, you know what? Do it in reverse, because it's hard for you to answer one before the second one. So let me ask you this then. Question one, would having Hogan lose the belt between January 23rd, 1984 and WrestleMania 3 cheapen the match at WrestleMania 3 with Andre? If not, what would you do?
I think the answer to that question is yes. I think it would. If he dropped the belt and won it back, it would cheapen the WrestleMania 3 main event, because that main event is all about the fact of here's Andre the Giant, allegedly undefeated for 15 years, up against essentially the unbeatable champion. That's how you're presenting that match. That was how the WWF and Vince presented that match. Two
Right.
guys who can't be beaten. So if Hogan had dropped the belt and won it back,
Mhm.
I think it diminishes that plot point of the big Andre match. Even if you didn't know that you were going to do that match and then you get to it, it's sort of like, oh, well, Hogan has been beaten. He's our great superhero champion, but he has lost a match and won it back. So I think it would have diminished the impact of the title. And it also diminishes the impact when he after beating Andre, it diminishes the impact of when he lost the belt because he was viewed as Superman. This guy can't be beaten. This guy is never going. It really was in that Bruno category. This guy's never going to lose the belt, and then he lost the belt. Like
Right.
that build up. So I think if he dropped the title earlier, I think that yeah, it has a massive impact on the future, and I don't know that that's the right thing to do. So the answer to the second question is yeah, I don't I think it diminishes the reality of the future stories, and I don't think I don't think the enjoyment and the benefits of giving someone else a run um uh outweighs the impact of the Andre storyline. So
Gotcha.
that's where I go. Going back to the other question, are there people who could have benefited from
Oh,
a potential
a
championship
ton.
run?
A ton.
Well, yeah, look, anyone could have. I think the way the WWF presented people, I think there's only two. Piper's one, we've done that, but we've also talked about the fact that Piper never really needed the title. He was
No.
so over.
Yep.
Yeah, the only other person I think might have benefited would have been Orndorff. When he
Yep.
first went
Yep.
heel,
Yep.
you could have had that first match at the big event. There's the upset. And then the Saturday night main event cage match becomes the regaining of the title.
Oh
That
my God.
that that's where I think you could have. That's the one person I think who would have really benefited
Oh
from
my
it.
God. Imagine if my first ever live show was Hogan winning the title from, oh my God. Oh, I'd have lost I'd have pooped myself. That would have been crazy. 13-year-old me. That would have been, I would have lost my mind. I would have lost my mind. Merry Christmas to me, 1986.
And
Okay.
I think if that Hogan Orndorff storyline was played out in the Attitude Era or later, it's exactly what you would have got. Orndorff turns his back on Hogan in the tag match because he feels he's being held down. His friend doesn't give him the shot, whatever it is. And that first match, he would win the title. That's how you would play it out in the modern storyline era. And then Hogan wins it back. You build up to that rematch and Hogan gets the title back. So I think you're talking about time periods as well. We're talking about an era where those long-term build champions was the way to go. In the Attitude Era and beyond, the television era of championships, Orndorff probably would have got a championship run out of his heel turn.
I agree. I agree. I agree with you in general that Hogan keeping it all the way till February of '88 is the right thing to do. WrestleMania 3 was the most important title match of that 4-year run. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it. And it gave us, that was the linchpin for what would become the future and why we're doing this show and all of our other shows and
Yeah.
the fans we are. All right. So in the Prime universe, Hogan drops the belt to Andre on the main event with the controversial the plastic surgery. And then of course they vacate it because Andre sells it to DiBiase. And then we have the tournament and then we have the tournament and then Savage wins at WrestleMania 4. I've got two theories if we wanted to switch things up.
Mm-hmm. I've
I
definitely
don't know
got
if,
one.
okay. What if Andre just holds on to it and Andre and Hogan have a rematch at WrestleMania 4
Okay.
and Hogan wins it back there? Andre gets a legit title reign a legit title reign that he completely deserves,
Mm-hmm.
and Hogan wins it back in Atlantic City at WrestleMania 4. B, we go through with this, the vacating the title, the whole tournament, and Savage wins at WrestleMania 4 anyway. Or 3, and I think I know where you're going with this, but give me your scenario.
I think 3 is the other scenario, which is Andre sells the belt to DiBiase and they don't take the belt off Ted and they keep it on him and they let Ted have a run with the championship. I think DiBiase as a heel champion after that long reign of Hogan would have been sensational.
I agree.
I think you still Savage could have been his first challenger. Savage can challenge him at. Oh, yeah, I mean, you could even go down the line of if he refuses to face Hogan at WrestleMania 4. Look, you could play the storyline. Oh, you can't sell the title, and so then on television, do it on Superstars for heaven's sake. DiBiase challenges Andre to a match the next week on Superstars, and you do a Andre lays down.
Like, you do a finger poke of doom.
Yeah, well, essentially, because the whole premise is DiBiase can do it. So if DiBiase can't buy off Jack Tunney, then the argument could be made. Jack saying, "Well, no, Andre is the champion." Okay, well, I want a match with Andre. Andre says, "I will only defend the title against. I've signed to face DiBiase next week on Superstars." Okay, and then they come out and they make an absolute fast. Andre lays down. DiBiase even just puts one finger on Andre as his pin. Sort of really laying it out. They do the title change, and you can see DiBiase just hands over a case of money in the moment. Like, there's more money for that.
Or if you don't want to embarrass Andre says, he pretends to be injured. He comes out with a cane and says, I'm too injured to wrestle, boss. So I'm handing forfeit, or I'm handing my title shot to someone of my choosing. I choose Virgil. And Virgil lays down, and Andre gets another Halliburton of spinach.
Yeah, whatever.
And then you really make a fucking joke out of it.
Yeah, but all in all, I think the premise there being, I would have loved to have seen DiBiase get a run with the title, and then he could refuse. Hogan can still face Andre at WrestleMania 4, and I always believe that should have been the cage match they had at WrestleFest. That can be, I
agree with you. Yep.
That can be your WrestleMania 4 rematch, because DiBiase refuses to face him. DiBiase can go into a feud with Savage. I think DiBiase defends the title against Savage at Mania 4, holds onto it, and you can just go the summer where Savage is, he's elevated to that prime main event role, but he's the challenger. He's challenging DiBiase. Then you can still do Mega Bucks, Mega Powers at SummerSlam. DiBiase holds the belt. Then you can transition Savage and Hogan into the Twin Towers while DiBiase refuses to face him. And then finally, whatever it is, however they work it, Hogan is put into the WrestleMania 5 main event. He gets the rematch at WrestleMania and beats DiBiase for the title, finally ending this reign of financial terror, this money grabbing power hold that DiBiase has had over the company for 12 months. Is ended at WrestleMania when he finally gets the shot.
That's a good theory. I like that theory. Now, with all of these scenarios,
the big loser in that is Savage, obviously.
Well, yeah, I mean, right now, what we've pretty much done, not unfortunately, because I like the fact that we're kind of thinking in another direction. We pretty much wiped out the Mega Powers, which is kind of unfortunate because the Mega Powers kicks ass. But I love your theory if they move ahead and do that. Now,
you don't. But see, there's the thing: you don't have to completely wipe out the mega powers because they can still be an element, and then you can either transition it that Savage is jealous that Hogan got the title shot, and maybe that ends their friendship. It's not as obviously Savage not holding the belt, it changes the dynamic, but you can still do that element of Hogan got the championship match and Savage is jealous of that. And then that builds. And so perhaps your Mega Powers breakup happens at SummerSlam. Whether you break them up in a tag match on the show or whether Saturday night's main event, you break them up and they have Savage challenges him at SummerSlam. You can still do the breakup. You just draw it out longer.
Okay. Let's go back to the Prime universe. Let's say that in the Prime universe, everything is the same. Savage wins the title at WrestleMania 4. And of course, we get the build to the Mega Powers. I would not change that in any capacity. No. That stays the same. Savage holds the belt for the whole year. The Mega Powers happens, and Hogan beats him at WrestleMania 5. I don't change that at all.
So I think both storyline, both universes there in our alternate universe, we still end up putting the belt back on Hogan at WrestleMania 5.
Right. The belt goes back on Hogan at WrestleMania 5 in some capacity, whether we do the Mega Powers or not. Hogan is the champion at WrestleMania 5.
Yeah.
Obviously, he holds the belt for a year, and we get to April 1st, 1990 in Toronto. The Ultimate Challenge, WrestleMania 6. Hulk Hogan loses to the Ultimate Warrior. I was still giving it to Warrior because he was the next guy in line. I would have still given it to Warrior. Would I have held it all the way? Would I have given it to him all the way till the Rumble in 91? Was there any heels for him to beat? To beat him in that throughout that entire rest of 1990? Well, I mean, if you wanted to hold off Mr. Perfect as champion, as Intercontinental Champion, he could have got a win. You could have had Warrior lose to Rude again. What could have been an alternative? Or do you still, in our universe, Dave, do you still do the Ultimate Challenge at WrestleMania 6? So that's question one. Would you still have the Ultimate Challenge at WrestleMania 6 and have Warrior beat Hogan? And if you do you have three scenarios? I'll branch this off. Number one, you keep it as is, and Warrior keeps it till Rumble 91 when he loses to Slaughter. Scenario two is one we did last month at WrestleMania on our WrestleMania episode where Warrior keeps it for the whole year and Hogan wins in the rematch at WrestleMania 7. Or C, Warrior drops the belt to somebody else and Hogan wins it back at WrestleMania 7.
Yep.
So there's number one, are you still giving it to Warrior in our universe? And number two, if you do, where do you go from there?
All right. So I think when you look at the trajectory Warrior was on and how over he was getting, how quickly, I think the Warrior Hogan match, it's a match that transitions all timelines, all universes. I think it's a match that cuts through the space-time continuum and would occur no matter what. I think that's a given. So I would still have that as your WrestleMania 6 main event. I think the fun comes where we can play into where I took our story before, and this is where we can reward someone for their patience. I would argue that if you gave the belt to DiBiase in 88, he loses it to Hogan, and then perhaps you do the Mega Powers breakup in the summer of 89, and they just have it becomes a house show series. They never get the super big, that's going to be like SummerSlam 88, the tag team falls apart. Hogan still wins the match. It could even be the Twin Towers match. You could still do that idea. You could do the whole Elizabeth thing for all of it. They do a TV, they do a house show run, obviously. Perhaps they have a match at Survivor Series, and maybe even they have a match at Rumble, and Hogan wins. And Hogan then faces Warrior at Royal Rumble, and he loses. Savage has never had his title. It's Savage who takes the belt off Warrior. You could have Warrior lose the title to Savage, who has never held it, is a heel now, and you could build up to Savage and Hogan at WrestleMania 7, which is the match you have never had. At this point, it's the match you've never had on that scale. And I think that would have outdrawn what Hogan and Slaughter did.
Right. Okay.
So keep it on. Yeah, WrestleMania 6 stays the same. Yep, there's the answer. Warrior gets his title win. Where do you go from there? I mean, we've done the Warrior rebook as well.
Yep.
I think, I've gone back and forth. I would have loved Perfect to get a title run. I don't think that is the time period. I think we might be able to come back to Perfect later in our journey here. I think Savage getting the run in late 1990 maybe wins the belt, whether it be at Royal Rumble or even Survivor Series. You could have a title match at Survivor Series, or you could have the title match at the Rumble, but Savage wins the belt there, and he goes on to face Hogan at WrestleMania. I think there's your reward. Savage gets a world championship, much deserved. He's the top heel in the company. I mean, he was in 1990 and 1991. He was the top heel in the company, regardless of Slaughter getting the title run. Savage was the number one heel, and there's your title. There's your championship match.
Okay. A lot of scenarios there. Not that we're trying to discount Warrior or anything, but there's a lot of scenarios there. So in the Prime universe, of course, because of the Gulf War and all that, Slaughter wins the belt at the 91 Rumble. Hogan wins it for the third time at WrestleMania 7.
I think in our universe, Hogan's winning it back from Savage.
Right.
And you could throw the retirement stipulation on. You could throw the retirement stipulation onto that match. Not, loser must retire. I mean, imagine that. There's your stakes. Like, I mean, we lose the. I know if Justin's listening to this, we're probably breaking his heart and killing him by saying we lose this great Warrior Savage match at WrestleMania 7, which we do.
I know.
But you can transfer that loser must retire stakes into Hogan Savage very easily.
Yeah, sure you could. Yep. And that would add a lot of juice. That would add a ton of juice. So Hogan has the belt. In the Prime universe, he holds it till Survivor Series, where he drops it to The Undertaker. Of course, Hogan is embroiled the Savage feud in that, or in the summertime, he gets some Savage rematches. We have SummerSlam 91. They can wrestle each other again. Then we get to Survivor Series, and he loses to The Undertaker. That we all know that's part of the whole Flair flim-flam nonsense. Then, of course, Hogan wins it back at this Tuesday in Texas. They vacate it because of all the nonsense on the title matches, and then Flair wins it at the Rumble. So let's talk about this bridge between WrestleMania 7 when Hogan wins it from somebody, In the real world, in the Prime world, it was Slaughter. In our world, I guess it would be Savage. Undertaker wins it in the Prime universe. Are we doing that here?
Look, I don't want to. I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
The reality was it was a backdrop to the Flair Hogan, the build for a Flair Hogan match. That was what it was a backdrop to. So that title change doesn't need to be there, primarily because where do we come from? Why would Flair want to get the belt off Hogan when he wants to be the champion? So I would think he wants to face Hogan. He wants to face Hogan for the title. I think what we want to be building to is we want to be building to that match that we didn't get. We want to be building to Flair versus Hogan for the title. I think you could keep the belt on Hogan right through. You can have the shenanigans at Tuesday in Texas. Maybe you just rule the match a no contest. Sorry. Survivor Series becomes a no contest. Rematch at Tuesday in Texas. Hogan wins. Hogan holds the belt. You make the Royal Rumble the number one contender. The winner that you put the stakes on. The winner gets a shot. This becomes the first time the winner gets a shot at the title. Flair can go the distance like he does. You can keep that WrestleMania, that Royal Rumble storyline intact. But it's just he wins the title shot and he faces Hogan at WrestleMania 8 for the title. You get that big one-on-one match where it should be, and Flair surprises everyone with a cheap victory. While he's celebrating after the match, Warrior comes out. After the match, Hogan, Flair and Perfect are maybe trying to put the boots in or whatever. Warrior comes out. Hogan and Warrior fight. Chase Flair and Perfect out of the ring, and Hogan and Warrior pose to Hogan's music. So at least the fans go home seeing Hogan must pose.
Interesting. So
I think the issue you've got is coming out of Mania 8, Hogan can't be champion because Hogan's taking a break. Hogan's moving away from full-time competition. So Hogan can't be champion at the end of 8. That's where we at. I just think Hogan and Flair at 8 would have been the match. Should have been the match we got.
Yeah, of
I
course
don't think you want to take, and I don't think you want to take the. Don't want to take the title off him beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I wouldn't take the title off him beforehand. So he keeps it right through.
Then obviously in the Prime world, Savage wins the title at WrestleMania 8, and he ends up losing it to Flair in September.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start getting the official changing of the guard when Bret Hart wins it at a taping in Saskatoon on October 12th, 1992. Yeah. So we have Flair as champion throughout the summer. Do we have Flair versus Savage? Do we skip Warrior altogether? Because he's obviously, I don't know how we figure that out if he's not going to turn heel. What is your main event in London? Shouldn't say main event because we could. The main event would probably still be Bret and Bulldog. So Let me rephrase that. What is your world title match at Wembley at WrestleMania at SummerSlam 92?
There's your Flair Savage match. Flair and Savage can have their blinder of a match there.
And who do you have?
Look, you could give Savage Savage a win there. He could win there. I think it's where you want to go, and I think we need to divert for a second. We need to divert. We need to look ahead before we come back. I think the question we need to be asking is in this alternate timeline, does Bret Hart end up with the championship? Are we going to crown Bret Hart as the leader of the new generation, as what happened in '92? Is that the plan? Do you think Bret should get it? Do we think that's still a trajectory we want to keep? Not saying when he gets it. I'm just asking, does Bret get it?
I think he does.
All right.
I think he does.
Right. So then we can work back. We want Bret to get the title at some point. It could be at a TV taping. It could be at Survivor Series, Royal Rumble. We want it on him at some point. I think Bret beating Flair is the way to go to crown Bret. I think Bret beating a heel is that's a better option in the scenario. So you really can do the Savage could beat Flair at SummerSlam, and perhaps Flair wins the belt back at Survivor Series, and then with all the cheating and Razor Ramon gets involved and all that, and then Bret takes the belt from Flair at a later date, possibly even at very like a short reign, title reign. It could be TV tapings just after, something like that, or you might hold off till Royal Rumble, or you could just Flair keeps the belt all the way through. I like the idea of maybe giving Savage a second championship reign. I like the idea of Savage getting the belt for a short period of time, and then Flair wins it back with the help of Razor, potentially at Survivor Series. But you could also start to build into the Perfect story. You might not have brought Perfect back into the ring yet, but you could start to play up that perhaps Perfect's not had. Maybe Flair's starting to take advantage of Perfect, or take Perfect for granted. So he needs Razor to help him win the title back, because Perfect's not. Maybe Perfect said, "Go and do it yourself. I'm not coming out to the ring for this one," or something like that. So you can start to build the tension there. But Flair, and that tension can boil over when he loses the title to Bret. You weren't in my corner. You weren't doing the right thing. Where were you? You turned your back on me, and you're walking in my shadow and all that crap.
Okay. And that's at Survivor Series.
Yeah, I think you could do that at Survivor Series. Yeah, so Flair wins at SummerSlam. Sorry, Savage wins at SummerSlam, drops it back at Survivor Series.
So Flair has the title at Survivor Series. What do we do about Flair leaving in early '93? His contract's up and he moves on back to WCW. So we got to do something about that. Now we're definitely going in the weeds now. Now, who wins the Rumble?
Well, I guess it's we put when do we put the belt on Bret? I think you could legitimately do it not long after Survivor Series. I think you could do it at TV tapings or at an MSG just after Survivor Series, and Bret can go into the Rumble with the belt, and you could be considering keeping Yoko as the winner, or we could do, that's where it comes down to how long does Bret have the belt for? Do you want him to lose it at WrestleMania IX? Do we need the challenger to be the person who's going to step up like Yokozuna did? Or do we want it to be someone that Bret can overcome? And this is where I think we could come back to Mr. Perfect having never had the title reign. I would love to see Perfect win the Rumble and take the title from Bret at WrestleMania.
Interesting.
In a classic babyface match. essentially the match you get at King of the Ring that year, you get at WrestleMania, but you just make it a little bit longer.
Okay. I mean, I like giving Perfect his well-deserved title. So Perfect, as we're now in our lineage, Perfect is champion instead of Yokozuna. We don't do, obviously Hogan does not win it. We're not even going there.
No.
Now Yoko, in the Prime universe, Yoko wins it at King of the Ring. He beats Hogan. I like Yoko still winning the belt. Perfect losing to him. Brett winning the King of the Ring.
Mm-hmm. And we come back and we essentially come back to the point that we were at in the Prime universe.
Right. The change I have there is, do we really try and flip Luger like they did?
No.
You don't even want to acknowledge it with a word.
I think, look, I'm not the greatest Luger fan anyway, and I wasn't a big fan of his. I never liked the All American.
No, I didn't either. It bombed.
So I think
he didn't, and I've said this on this show. I've said this on other shows. Luger didn't lean into it. He's just too much of an asshole. That's the way he is. He looks like an asshole. So it just didn't work. It didn't work. How about this? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. I was going to say you go. You give me your how about.
Okay, so Yoko's champ. Let's skip the Luger nonsense. And how about we have Brett still feuds with Lawler?
Yep.
I know that sucks. I feel bad for Brett, but Brett still feuds with Lawler. He does win King of the Ring to legitimize himself.
Mm-hmm.
You have let's say Yoko Savage at WrestleMania IX, at SummerSlam 93. You have all these classic guys that are still in the company wanting their crack to knock off this evil, even though he was Samoan, and I realize now that they actually acknowledged him as Samoan. He wasn't Japanese. Yeah. This evil foreigner or whatever, which I think is funny that they made him a foreigner, even though he wasn't. Anyway, Yoko wins. We go to Survivor Series. Okay. Not that I want to skip the Brett Owens stuff, but I feel like we should have a team of a Yoko-led team versus a Brett-led team at Survivor Series 93. Brett pins Yoko. Okay? Hear me out. We go to the Rumble in Providence. We forget the whole Luger, Brett hit the ground at the same time. Nobody cares. Brett wins the Rumble. Yoko gets one more time. We still give Yoko Taker. We still do Yoko Taker at the 94 Rumble. Taker in our universe, Taker will still take time off.
Mm-hmm.
We go to Brett wins the Rumble. Yoko comes out and absolutely beats the crap out of Brett. He's pissed off that Brett pinned him at the Survivor Series. Now he's pissed off because now he's got to face him at WrestleMania 10, and Brett's in his head, and Yoko comes out at the end of the Rumble and absolutely beats the tar out of him. Or you could wait till the next night on Raw if you really wanted to. But
wait till Raw.
So Brett celebrates, and Cornette and Fuji just kind of bait him into some, and then stooling, and Yoko comes from behind, gives him an avalanche. Banzai drops him like 4 times, and Brett's gone for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, Yoko does a couple of more title shots, really works his butt off, and then Brett wins at WrestleMania 10.
Yep, I love it. I think that works perfectly. I think that's a good journey there. I think it's a good way to, we've got in 12 months we've got a nice opportunity for Perfect to win the belt in a babyface match. He drops it to Yoko, so Brett's never had that match. It keeps that Brett Yoko match as a fresh match. Yep, we Savage is a perfect guy to have the SummerSlam match, and then whatever you do at Survivor Series, I like that idea. Move it through like you did, and we end up with Brett winning the title at WrestleMania 10. I think it's fantastic.
Okay. I feel like the only bad part is I feel like we've lost Owen.
I think you can find ways to keep elements of the Owen storyline, like Brett's team that faces Yokozuna. It's going to want to have Taker in it because you're setting up Taker at Royal Rumble.
Yep.
But there's no reason. Like, you could originally, maybe it's Brett, Taker, and the Steiners. There's your original 4 against Yoko, Ludwig Borger, and the Quebecers. There's your 4. And then one of the Steiner brothers gets taken out. They get injured. They do the injury angle thing to take him out. And Brett announces he's bringing his brother into the team. We were going to replace one brother with another. And so Owen joins the team, of which the commentators at Survivor Series could talk about it being a weak link. You could do the same thing, Ludwig or Jacques or Pierre or someone gets pulled out, you put Crush in, and you can do all that crap as well. And then at the Rumble, at Survivor Series, you could actually have Owen, looking good. And you could basically do the same elimination. He accidentally gets eliminated when he collides with Brett after Brett having been beaten up a little bit in the ring. And so you get the same situation. He gets eliminated. He goes to the back. Then when the good guys win the match, and like you said, Brett gets a pin over, and maybe it's it. No one else in the team loses. Or maybe you get rid of the other Steiner brother, so it's Brett and Taker at the end. But Brett gets the visual pin on Yoko in the match. And maybe he gets the pin on Yoko, they roll out, and then Undertaker pins the last person, so he gets the last victory to sort of showcase that Taker's going to get the shot. And while they're celebrating in the ring, you almost do what happened at WrestleMania 10. Owen is standing there looking, or even sort of comes out and he's not happy, but we don't see the push and shove on the show. You get that on Raw. You get the push and shove on Raw. The only reason I wasn't celebrating with you is because of this, and then you can transition into that storyline as a backdrop underneath, of which when he wins the belt, the jealousy finally overcomes him, and it's like in a tag team match after WrestleMania, he kicks his leg out from his leg and gets the title shot at SummerSlam as a result. It becomes that idea of, I've been living in a shadow, I want the shot, and you get the one-on-one match at SummerSlam, but Owen just doesn't get the win.
Right. Okay.
So we're talking about something that's not even a title match here.
I know.
But I know where you're coming from. We lose that, but I think there are ways you can keep it in. So in the end, we still end up with Brett comes out of WrestleMania 10 with the title. So we're back on track again with where the Prime Universe lands. We end up in the same spot.
Okay. Now in the Prime
Universe, we can have some fun. Now we can have some fun.
In the Prime Universe, Brett holds the belt until Survivor Series when he loses to Bob Backlund. That does not happen.
No. I'm willing to go so far as to say I'm not even sure in our universe I want the belt on Diesel.
Okay. Okay.
I'm wondering if I'm wondering if we really strap the rocket to Brett here and give him a big run with the potential that perhaps in our arc with Owen, we have a short drop. Owen gets a very short, and I mean very short, like perhaps wins it at, whether it be SummerSlam, it might even be SummerSlam, because you can do the taker thing as your main event. Brett drops the belt very briefly to Owen, but I mean literally wins it back the following week on Raw, or like you have that. It's only like a 1 week thing, and Brett gets the belt straight back, and you just give Brett a good run here. I mean, again, we come back to the reality. We've done a lot of chopping and changing since Hogan, but the whole time, that whole period where until that's even during the Diesel reign, Brett was still really presented as equal top guy, if not the top guy. Diesel couldn't beat Brett. They faced each other. Diesel couldn't win that match, and the only reason Brett's matches weren't in the main event was because there was no other main eventers for him to face. He was because the roster was so thin that Brett's wrestling Hakushi and John Pierre Lafitte and Lawler and every man and his dog, including the Bulldog. But from a presentation point of view, Brett was always presented as the top guy. I think you could just keep the belt on him for nearly 2 years here, because then it makes the match with Shawn all that more important. And you put it into an Iron Man scenario, you can have that Iron Man match that we talked about last episode. You could have that match as the end to that long championship reign.
Yeah. I actually like this idea of giving Brett like a legit Brett run. I like that idea. I really do. As we cobble this together, and Brett is still champion through 95, through the end of 94, we're going into 95. Eventually, we're going to have to start grooming Shawn.
Yeah. I think you get the babyface turn at some point. Shawn can still turn babyface. The whole Diesel Sid Shawn scenario, that can all play out as an undercard. Like the Diesel Shawn feud Diesel can still turn babyface. Diesel and Shawn can still feud. They can have a blow off match at WrestleMania. Like that all can still happen. Then Sid powerbombs Shawn, and Diesel and Shawn befriend each other again. That whole storyline can happen. It just doesn't need the title.
True. And we get through the end of 95. So do we just go straight through and we still have the Iron Man at 12?
Yeah, I think so. The Iron Man that we discussed on our last episode
Iron Man
of the show. If you haven't heard that, go back, listen to the archives. You'll hear that we modified that Iron Man match to make it a much more enjoyable match, which really played into the Iron Man concept of who can get the most pinfalls rather than the 1 hour draw. So go back, listen to that. That's the match we want to see.
Yep. And I think the other cool thing is we've made Brett practically unbeatable.
Yeah.
And I think that adds to the story even more. So, all right.
He always finds a way to win. Like he has the match with Diesel, he finds a way to win. He has a match with Taker, he finds a way to win. Like that becomes the element of who Brett is. He fights everyone, but always seems to find a way to win.
Yep.
And then that ties into our Shawn Iron Man story, which is Brett just can't seem to find that final way to win, and Shawn gets the win.
Okay. So we're at Shawn Michaels. We're back. We actually tied ourselves back to the Prime Universe. So Shawn wins the world title at WrestleMania 12. I still like Psycho Sid beating him at Survivor Series, even though I love Vader, and Vader was supposed to be the original guy. I still prefer Sid. Mm-hmm. So I still think Sid wins at Survivor Series because I think that's a good moment.
Well, does he need to? All right, let's jump ahead. I think we need to go ahead to work back again. This is one of those times we need to go ahead to work back because WrestleMania 13 is chaos because of injuries and losing smiles and all the crap around that.
Right.
So who do we want coming out of WrestleMania 13 with the title? Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be Taker because this is our universe and we're obviously building long run to, I think the eventual destination, if we even go further ahead, the eventual destination is Austin wins the belt at 14.
Yes.
That's the destination.
That cannot change. That cannot change.
That doesn't change. Who he beats can change, but that doesn't change. So we need Austin to have the title when you come out of 14. So if we work back from there, I think we work back from there. I love to go back to the storyline we put together very early in our run where he actually beats Brett for the title at 14. I would love that to be the outcome. And Brett
do too.
Is still there. So, all right. So we've got Brett has the title probably coming out of SummerSlam 97, that whole where he wins the title there. So bringing it back from there, the champion from probably Mania to SummerSlam, the reason I say we can have some fun here is that could be Sid. You could have Sid come out of 13 with the title and Brett beats Sid at SummerSlam. With Shawn, Shawn could be the damn referee for that too. That doesn't matter either way.
Right.
But I argue that because we could go back and we could still put the belt on Vader at SummerSlam. You could have, or at Survivor Series, Shawn drops the belt to Vader, wins it back, and then loses it to Sid at WrestleMania. Babyface versus babyface. So the match you got at Survivor Series, you just get it at WrestleMania.
Okay.
It's a thought. There's an idea I'm throwing out there.
We don't have to deal with all the Montreal nonsense.
Nope.
That's good to know.
Because I do like what you said. I would love to have seen Vader get even a brief run with the WWF title. I think the guy that he was in WCW, when they brought him in as that character, it was the perfect heel to have a short run. He overpowers, he power bombs Shawn, and how is Shawn going to come back from that? And Shawn comes back and it's basically Shawn plays the role of Ric Flair at Starrcade 94. How does he going to win this match? How can he overcome this big, massive giant? It's just that Vader's only had the title for 3 months rather than, a year.
Right.
I think Shawn plays that story brilliantly, wins it back from Vader. Then you can move around. And then look, he wants to lose his smile. Sid and Taker can still have their match and Sid can win it. Or he keeps his smile and he puts Sid over. And Taker can have a final match against Mankind or something at WrestleMania.
Or we could have we talked about Austin and Taker.
Yes, there's another option.
Yep. But yeah, I think eventually we have to get to Austin winning at WrestleMania 14. That's the equivalent of Hogan winning in January of '84. That's a linchpin moment. We can't change that.
That's right.
from there, because I kind of want to move along a little bit. So
Yeah.
from
so
there,
are we saying we've got the belts on Austin at 14?
yes, we got the belt. However, we serpentine
Let's just to lay it down. This is where we've gone. Vader wins the belt from Shawn at say SummerSlam or Survivor Series. He loses it back to Shawn. Vader loses back to Shawn at Royal Rumble. Sid beats Shawn at WrestleMania, and Brett beats Sid at SummerSlam '97, where Shawn is the guest referee, so Shawn can turn heel as well. But we don't ever use Montreal. Brett keeps the belt all the way to WrestleMania, and he puts Austin over one-on-one, clean in the middle of the ring as the new champion, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Right. And in our universe, we don't give a shit what Brett does in WCW.
No.
So we don't care. Now, in the Prime universe, Stone Cold holds it till King of the Ring, when he loses the first blood match to Kane, and then Austin wins it back the next night on Raw in Cleveland. I hate that. That's stupid. Yeah. So I like Austin holding it all the way to the rest of this. Actually, I don't have a problem with.
Mm-hmm.
Except I would get rid of, no disrespect to Kane, I'd get rid of the Kane title change at King of the Ring 98, and then Austin winning it back the next night in Cleveland. That makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
Austin holds it all the way to Breakdown.
Yep.
Him and Kane and Taker have that three-way mishmash mess to get the belt off him, and begins, in my opinion, one of my favorite WrestleMania arcs of all time, from the whole Austin McMahon from Breakdown 98 to WrestleMania 15. Now, I still have the Deadly Games at Survivor Series. I still have The Rock win it.
Yep.
I still have the match with Mick on the Raw, because you need that win in Worcester, in my opinion, turn the tide of the Monday Night War.
Yep.
Completely. And then him and Rock bounce the belt back and forth. You have the match at the Rumble in Anaheim with the 50 zillion chair shots. Although maybe you and I amp the match down a bit, not make it as and Mick doesn't have a 37-inch gash in his skull. Maybe we'll skip that. And then Mick wins it on halftime heat, because I always thought that was fun. And then Rock wins it at Raw, in the ladder match. Mm-hmm. And then Stone Cold wins it at WrestleMania 15 in Philly, because that also has to happen, because that kind of ends the Vince storyline, sort of.
But I would just make that match triple threat. I would put Mick in that match.
Okay.
And it can be triple threat.
Okay.
Because then you could do to put it through to the next month. Austin can pin Mankind, and then The Rock can basically run the next month going, "You never beat me," and that's why you get your Backlash. Then you get your Backlash rematch 1-on-1 with Rock, and he beats The Rock, and he gets his title, he gets his Smoking Skull belt, and that whole storyline plays out. But it's just that The Rock's argument, as the additional argument, is you never beat me. You beat Mick. You're running around with my title, but you never beat me.
Right.
And then you get the Backlash, and he wins.
Yep. I'm gonna have no disrespect to Taker, but let's pretend Over the Edge didn't happen. We don't. Let's.
No, I just want to throw some. I'm happy with that. I agree totally. I just want to point out that we've essentially, the one thing we have done on this journey today is we have screwed the Undertaker royally. He is yet to win a world championship.
I know we have really screwed him. But what makes
and I do think we will need to find a championship for him to win, because I think where we're at, it's got to come.
How about? Well, we could do this. Remember, this is our universe.
Mm.
We have him lose to Taker at Over the Edge, but Owen lives. How's that sound? Owen lives. And maybe because eventually he was going to retire. Owen was going to retire eventually.
Mm.
So let's just say Owen lives at Over the Edge, and that nonsense stunt never happens. So let's have Taker win it Over the Edge. He diverts. Austin's feuding with Vince. We still get the We still get the CEO thing. We still get that awesome episode where he's in headquarters.
I think that's the thing. We need the belt off Austin for that whole CEO storyline.
Right,
That's the key, and that King of the Ring match. So you do need that. I think this is right. We do need to put the belt on Taker here because we've got to have the belt off Austin for that little story arc. So
if I don't see you around here, I always hang up with my buddy. I always hang up with my friend on the phone. I always do. If I don't see you around here, I'll see you around here. Remember he did that on the phone at the Raw. I love that. That's like one of my favorite Stone Cold things ever. So he feuds with Austin. He feuds with Vince. They do the briefcase thing, that nonsense briefcase thing at King of the Ring. And then the next night on Raw in Charlotte, Austin wins the belt back and beats Taker.
Yeah.
So that I don't have a problem with.
Yep.
We go to SummerSlam and Mankind wins the triple threat with Triple H.
I never liked that.
I never liked it either.
I think we keep the belt on Austin, and I think we hold off Triple H's win. And I say that because we know Hunter is going to win the belt at some point.
Yep.
And I think what you do is you keep the belt on Austin, and perhaps, look, maybe you take it to the next level. You take it all the way to just before Survivor Series. So we want to be fair. They knew that Stone Cold was not going to be able to wrestle at Survivor Series in advance. They knew that. There was a bit of bait and shift there.
Bait and switch. Yep.
So I think what you could do is you could have now they had I'm just trying to remember my pieces here. The 6-pack challenge was after Survivor Series. The Hell in the Cell 6-man match was after Survivor Series, wasn't it?
In 99?
Yeah.
No, that was 2000.
That was 2000. Okay, so we're in 99.
Yeah,
right.
We're not
okay,
even close to that.
I'm in the wrong year, so not even close to that. So we've got to get the belt off of Austin before we get to Survivor Series. So I think you can have Hunter win it from Austin on TV. That you could just do that on Smack. And I think that was part of the issue with the reason they put Foley over is I don't know if it was Austin didn't want to do it or they just didn't want to do Triple H beating Austin yet. And that was why they transitioned to Foley for that week.
I heard the rumor I heard had nothing to do with Austin not wanting to put Triple H over. That is not true, apparently. Apparently, this was an edict from Jesse Ventura.
Right.
Don't forget, he was the guest referee of the main event, and he said this was not a disrespect to Triple H, but if you wanted the belt off Steve, I'm not
raising the hand of the heel. I've got to raise the hand of the okay.
Jesse was old school kayfabe Carney. This is a big show. I want a baby face. I want to raise the hand of a baby face. So Triple H cannot win tonight. Whether that pisses him off or not is not my fucking problem.
So you can do Hunter win it at again. Do the whole thing. Austin beats Mick again, and Hunter, you didn't beat me, and they do. And it becomes a common storyline. But talk about a TV. You could put Hunter over on telly, and Hunter wins the title from Austin on a SmackDown somewhere in that couple of weeks after you could do it after SummerSlam because you want to. I think it was the time to transition the belt onto Hunter.
Oh, so the 6-pack. I know where you're getting confused, Dave. You were thinking you're not. I know what you meant. You weren't thinking the 6-pack at WrestleMania. at Armageddon 2000. Unforgiven 99, there was a 6-pack. It was Triple H, Big Show, Bulldog, Kane, Mick, and Rock. And Steve was the outside enforcer. That might have been what you were thinking of.
Right. Well, and that's before Survivor Series. So why not keep the belt on Stone Cold till then and take it off him there on in a match where there's lots of people involved, and so it's easy for him to get lost in the mix.
Right. He doesn't lose. He doesn't get pinned. You can have Kane get pinned or something.
Exactly. Right. He doesn't have that's where you change it. Triple H still ends up with the belt there.
At Unforgiven.
So we end up with Triple H is champion by that point.
Right. Now, with Triple H as champion, do we go to Survivor Series? Because at No Mercy, so Triple H has the belt then he loses it to Big Show at Survivor Series. And that, of course, he's replacing Austin because in our universe, Stone Cold has to have his neck surgery. So he gets the fake hit by the car, and Big Show wins at Survivor Series.
Yeah, no. Big Show did not need to win that belt.
I love your disappointed your disappointed sound in your voice, Dave. You don't do that very often. You're like, no. So do you keep it on? You know what you do? Just keep it on Triple H. Just do a 3-way with Triple H, Rock, and some other schlub. Well, maybe give Bulldog another title shot. Let him have another one.
You can have bloody Big Show in there too if you want, but just Hunter wins it. Hunter keeps the belt, and then Hunter keeps it through January. He doesn't win. Yep, you get the development of the whole. You get the development of the whole McMahon Helmsley faction. That all comes about still. Yep. You still have Mick and him at the Rumble in the awesome street fight at the Garden. You have him and Mick at No Way Out in Hartford. I was there. That Hell in a Cell. Mm-hmm. I think you still have, because if the plan is to have Austin back for a one shot while he's healing for Backlash, do we do the right thing and have Rock win at WrestleMania in Anaheim and just win the 4-way? Yes. Okay. And not a 4-way. Just Triple H Rock straight up. Triple H Rock straight up, 1-on-1, and Rock wins. Okay. Rock wins at WrestleMania 2000. Absolutely. So we do the thing that everybody thought they should have done. So all right. So Rock wins it. So we'll just move it up. Maybe they rematch at Backlash and Rock wins again, and maybe that's what Stone Cold does his one shot. Yep. Does Triple H still win it in the Iron Man at Judgment Day? Look. Again, wanting to work, I want to keep working backwards from certain points. Moving forward in the storyline, the person I think the title reign that I would like to keep in place is Kurt's victory later in the year. At No Mercy. Okay, so that's in No Mercy. Yeah. So Kurt is going to win the title at there. And he needs to beat Kurt being the heel. He needs to beat Rock. Like, I think that No Mercy match. Well, it was actually it wasn't that wasn't the triple threat, was it? The triple threat was SummerSlam. But Kurt wins Kurt wins the match from The Rock. That I want to keep. So coming back from there, if you wanted to do a Hunter Rock title flip at some point, I wouldn't have any problems with it. But the long-term story is that Rock's going to come out of that little storyline with the belt in the end to be able to put it onto Kurt. So yes, you could have a title change any point along the way. You could have a couple if you wanted, but I think the longer-term story is that Rock comes out with the belt after that series is done. Okay, I agree. So we could keep those title changes. Triple H wins at Judgment Day. The Rock wins it back at King of the Ring, and that's stupid. Mm-hmm. Although I would just do like another, maybe a cage match or something, because that you know how we both feel about that
ridiculous 6-man at King of the
Oh,
Ring. It's
yeah.
so stupid. Rock
Mm.
wins because he pins Vince. This is so
Yeah.
stupid.
No.
Um. So then Kurt wins at. Then I don't think any of this changes. I think Kurt wins at No Mercy. He holds on to it, gets some big title shot wins. I don't know if you want to change opponents.
I want to throw out a potential change here.
Sure. Okay.
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 All right. Because we put the belt on Kurt, and I'm cool with that. I loved the Kurt Hunter storyline. Love that storyline. With Triple H being heel but still being partly baby face and the whole set. I love that storyline. But if we look at Austin's return, as much as Austin Rock is this big match, the heat for Austin is with Hunter, because it was Hunter who the whole car
Right.
thing, the whole thing. What I would love to do is move the 3 stages of Hell match to WrestleMania, and Austin, and so you Triple H beats Angle for the belt and holds it to Mania, and you do the 3 stages of Hell match with Austin and Triple H at WrestleMania. We lose The Rock, but I think the heat for the Triple H match would be bigger.
Oh, you've made me smile. Because you know very well that the triple threat, the 3 stages of Hell at No Way Out, is my second favorite WWF match ever. So I would, putting that match in front of 69 or whatever it was, 68,000 people at the Astrodome, count me in. Now, are we keeping? So Stone Cold has the belt, so we get to that point.
He wins the belt.
We get a linchpin point here. Does he turn heel?
Not at WrestleMania. Not at the Astrodome.
Okay.
I think you can do, and I mean, look, I'll throw out some promotions of other shows. I don't know if you've been listening to some of the WrestleMania stuff that Justin and Ryan did in the build up. They talked about the idea that Austin, it would have been better if Austin had just beat Rock clean at that WrestleMania and then turned heel the night after.
Yeah, we've talked about that. We've talked about that.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. You could still have Vince turn up mid-match, because Vince has a history with both guys. He has a history with Hunter. Steph's out at ringside with Hunter. You could have Vince turn up, and maybe that whole idea, he does something that puts something in the ring that is used in the Hell in the Cell element stage of the match. But the commentators are like, who was he helping there? Like, Austin took advantage of it, but was he actually wasn't he trying to help Hunter? And Austin took advantage of it. And then the next night, no. Then it comes out that he was actually, Austin was working with McMahon. And then you can move forward from there. And Austin turns heel. He can, in essence, you're almost turning, you're completing the Triple H babyface turn early too, but Triple H can get injured. Like, it can be Rock, Triple H both going after now heel Austin, and Triple H tears his quad in a match with a tag team match there. Yep. Either way, Triple H can go get hurt and put himself out of action for a while. But I think, yes, we turn him heel the night after.
Okay.
Stone Cold.
I think the invasion does happen. We're not going to mess with that, unfortunately. Well, not. We've already rebooked that. We're not rebooking that tonight.
And I think you keep the Kurt Angle win when he gets it, and the straight switch back. I think you keep that too with the whole 9/11 storyline. I think that all stays intact.
Yes. So Austin's winning it at WrestleMania. We got that. Kurt Angle wins it at Unforgiven in his hometown. He loses it 2 weeks later to Steve back on Raw in Indianapolis. Then the invasion ends. They do the match at Vengeance, the whole merging. course, Chris
Mm-hmm.
Jericho wins at Vengeance. He wins all the belts.
I love that story. I love that arc. I think it's such a good thing for Jericho. I think
Right.
it really does cap the storyline they'd played with him for a couple of years, and I think I would keep that too.
Okay. Then Jericho keeps it, beats Rock at the Rumble. In the Prime Universe, he beats Austin at No Way Out, and that's when we get the debut of the NWO. And then Triple H wins it at X8 in Toronto. Do we keep that?
Well, this all comes down to what you do with Hogan at WrestleMania, because I've got a couple of thoughts here. Because if you want to if you want to keep Hogan Rock, then I think, you know, do we keep, look, I think that main event, number one, I think that main event could be triple threat. Whoever doesn't face Hogan between Rock and Austin, the other one could be in the main event with Triple H and Jericho. And you could change that main event up a little bit. Do I think Triple H comes out of WrestleMania with the title? I probably say I would keep that as a potential arc, although I don't like where it goes afterwards. So I want to change everything that happens after WrestleMania. I think Jericho needs to lose the title at WrestleMania.
Right.
I don't like the storyline that went in. I think you got to change everything up about the storyline. But I do think Triple H returning as the baby face for the first time. Look, I think Triple H should get the win. Returning as a baby face for the first time in his since he DX. His first time in the main event as a baby face. I think you rejig the storyline and make it better. But yes, Hunter wins the title at WrestleMania as a conquering hero concept, returning hero. Yeah.
So you don't like? I was, as much as I loved the Hogan, the nostalgia thing in 02. I always never was totally comfortable with Triple H dropping the belt in a month.
It was a reactionary storyline. Oh, Hogan's popular, and I think they very quickly realized after they put the belt on Hogan, oh, that was a mistake. So I would not. That change doesn't happen. Hogan does not get that win. Hogan can have a title match and lose, but he's not winning.
Right. Does Taker get his title win at Judgment Day against somebody?
Look, okay, I think this is a game where we need to move forward and work back, because we're pretty well at the end of our storyline. We want Brock winning the belt at SummerSlam.
Right.
That's our end point.
Right.
So who is Brock going to beat for the title? Does Brock beat The Rock like he did? Or do we want Brock to beat Undertaker? Or do we want Brock to beat Hunter?
Well,
I think there's an element.
If we keep the storyline with Hunter turning heel and turning on Shawn and everything, I'll be honest with you, if we're staying in our universe, I don't want to lose the unsanctioned street fight between the two of them, between him and Shawn at SummerSlam. I don't want to lose that match.
So Hunter has to lose the belt before SummerSlam. So there's our first point. We've got to get the belt off of Hunter. I think the best person to put over Brock is The Rock. I think he was the best person to make The Rock. I think, as much as I revere and honor The Undertaker, I do not think The Undertaker would he have lost the match? Yes. He would have done his job. Would it have been a good match? I'm not sure. We saw what they had down the future. I think you hold that off. And I think that allows you then to come back to Undertaker Brock later. They haven't had that match yet, and Taker is the challenger. So I think Rock is the person. Rock is the one that needs the belt by SummerSlam.
Yeah, I agree. So why don't we just have? I got an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter keeps the belt after Mania. Rock comes back. At this time, Shawn comes back, wants to restart DX. Hunter says, I don't have time for you anymore. I didn't have time for you when you were gone. I was champion. I ran this place while you were finding Jesus or whatever the hell you were doing. And then he still he still pedigrees him and all that. Rock wins some kind of number one contender thing on some show. Triple H Rock, beats Undertaker. Yep. Triple H Rock at Vengeance. Triple H is about to do the pedigree or something. Shawn super kicks him. Rock wins the belt. That way we get Rock Brock, and we still get Triple H and Shawn in the street fight.
I was just thinking that, and it comes out of nowhere. Like,
yep.
Like you don't even see. It's not even like you don't even get. I don't know how you would do it. It's all camera angles, but you get the idea of referees down. Hunter has, because he's just turned heel. He's obviously now cheating again. He's setting Rock up for the pedigree, and then I don't know. Shawn might have been under the ring. He might have come out of the crowd, but you just all of a sudden you just see the camera. You see the camera just pan back in time to see Shawn kick Hunter in the face, which Hunter didn't see coming. I think, so it's that idea of you didn't realize, like maybe Shawn's disguised as a photographer. He's got a hoodie and a beanie on at ringside. Like, whatever it is, I don't want him running in and the crowd getting all excited and tipping off what's about to happen.
Right,
you want
exactly.
It to be a total surprise.
Yep, I agree.
But I love that idea. Shawn costs Hunter the title. Rock wins it, and that gives Hunter more incentive to want to destroy Shawn at SummerSlam.
Right. And then Brock gets the SummerSlam, and he loses the belt to Brock Lesnar. And that is where we will leave off. So we got part one in. We got our journey. We got to Brock Lesnar. I liked some of our. What are? I have to say it. I usually don't. We don't usually sit back and patting ourselves on the back. But what surprisingly worked out for us as we did this tonight, this first part. I gotta say, I think the best thing we did tonight was giving Brett that long run.
Yes. Yep. And DiBiase a title reign as well.
Yes,
I think those two elements worked well. Yeah.
Perfect.
I think that was those were good elements we got in there. I think it was good that we tidied up some unnecessary title changes, things that just didn't need to happen.
Right. Yep.
And I think that I think in the end, we've also recognized there are key title reigns and key moments in this company's history that you wouldn't want to change no matter what. And we found ways to keep those intact. Even if we veered off one direction, we were still able to bring it back in a logical way to where it should be.
Yep. I agree. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this wonderful trip, rebooking the WWE Championship, the belt itself throughout history, which we haven't done, which we've never done before. And hopefully it's the first of one we'll do for several different titles over the next, over the course of our continuing show. Dave, pleasure as always. You can see Dave around the socials. He's part of the awesome Chronoso series over on the Noso. We'll be back next month, June. We will do part 2 of rebooking the WWE Championship. We'll start at Brock Lesnar as champion because I think that's a good starting point because we will have the brand split. Brock goes exclusively to SmackDown, so we'll stay with that. We're not going to book the world title on Raw. That's a separate show. We'll just stick with that belt and go from there. So, Dave, thank you. Fantastic job as always. Everybody, again, have a great rest of your May, and we will see you in June through the Looking Glass.